All right, thanks everybody for being here this morning. We start we have a 10 o'clock council meeting for the guests here. We won't start the council meeting till 10, but we'll go through the agenda right now to see if there's any changes or questions about agenda items. So we'll start monthly bills. There were no changes. Any questions? All right, approval of minutes. There were no changes. Any questions? All right, public hearings, resolution 23-217, approve request for special event liquor license for Carnegie Visual Arts Center, River Clay Fine Arts Festival at 133 2nd Avenue Northeast on October 20th, 2023, and 402 Lee Street Northeast, October 21st and 22nd, 2023. All right, any questions? Resolution 23-218, approve request for special use permit for Verizon to modify equipment on an existing tower located at 1406 Chadwell Street Southwest.
No changes.
Okay. Any questions? Resolution 23-219, approve Wisner proposal for right-of-way acquisitions at Upper River Road at Indian Hills Road. All right, any questions? Resolution 23-220, approve the agreement with Alabama Department of Corrections, North Alabama CBF CWC to provide labor to city departments.
There's no change.
Okay, any questions? Resolution 23-221, accept 2023 JAG grant.
No changes. I was here last week. I'm sure she's done a better job than I would do, but
She did a good job.
if there's any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
All right, any questions? All right, resolution 23-222, approve time extension for TTL Incorporated to complete bridge study.
Yeah, this is just a time extension to the bridge study. We've got the approval from ARC to allow us to get this extension, so this is just them to complete the study.
I think it goes to the end of the year.
It goes to the end of the year. We've actually got a little bit longer extension from ARC if we need it, but yeah, it's to the end of the year.
All right, resolution 23-223, approve agreement with Urbanist Media to complete a historic context statement for African American and women's history for the city of Decatur. Is that you, Alan? I'll say Caroline.
Yeah, this is just the approval for Urban Medias to do that study. We got the grant
All right, any
to do
questions?
this statement.
All right, resolution 23-224, accept $5,000 Air Products donation for the fire department. Any questions? Resolution 23-225, accept $10,000 donation from Alabama Farmers Cooperative to Decatur Fire Rescue toward the purchase of an all hazards response vessel. All right, any questions? Resolution 23-226, authorize mayor to execute an agreement with Dr. Tyler Goldbach to serve as the medical director for Decatur Fire Rescue. Any questions? Resolution 23-227, authorize mayor to execute a contract with First Due, a company that provides a records management system which includes fire and EMS incident reporting software. All right, any questions? Resolution 23-228, approve Princess Theater lease extension.
No, there's no change to that.
All right, any questions? Resolution 23-229, extend lease period for communications facility with ATC Ponderosa B1 LLC.
No change.
All right, any questions? Resolution 23-230, approve lease agreement for River Clay Fine Arts Festival. Any questions? Authorize resolution 23-231, approve authorization to open an electronic payment receivables account at Renaissance Bank. Okay, any questions? All right, then we had two additions. Resolution 23-232, adopt transportation plan pursuant to Rebuild Alabama Act 2019-2.
Good morning, Council. Kyle Demeester, CFO. This is an annual transportation plan. Our friends in Montgomery decided that we needed to start doing more formal plans related to the Rebuild Alabama funds. So we're required now to adopt by majority vote an annual transportation plan that details a list of projects for which expenditures are intended to be made in the next fiscal year based on an estimate of the revenues from the Rebuild Alabama Act. So you'll see here, we've estimated, it's very similar to our budget process, $400,000, just over, and then the roads that we plan to resurface out of those funds.
But the same roads would be resurfaced,
Correct.
but you just have to come up with what the
The
400,000.
process is still completely the same. We have to just formally identify the roads to council. You all have to approve that. And then in January, Carl will come and do a review with you all at a meeting of those projects and where we are at the status.
But I guess it's the list we would have repaved in the coming budget.
Correct.
And you just,
You will still see this same
Yeah.
list when we come to approve
the
budget.
reason I ask is there are a lot of roads in my district, and just want to be clear that it could have been any of, that make up 400,000, so,
Correct.
okay. Any questions?
Hi, I do. Courtney, you may or may not be able to answer this. Don't want to, trying to put you on the spot. Right, approximately, what does it take right now to resurface a lane mile as far as cost?
I'm not sure for a lane mile, honestly. I know the prices have gone up, but
It was around 100,000.
that sounds about right.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any other questions? All right, resolution 23-233, approved building permit moratorium on certain single-family housing developments. Herman?
Of course, as the city council knows, we're in the process and have been for some time of looking at a rewrite of our zoning ordinance. One of the items that we think needs further review as part of that is single-family housing, which involves what's called build-to-rent. So a resolution has been presented to y'all to have a 6-month moratorium so we can review that. But there are some exceptions to that because in order to be fair, if you've already purchased land with that intent, then this moratorium should not impact you. It should just go through the normal process of building permits or platting, building permits, and that process. So what this does is puts a 6-month moratorium, which basically means no new building permits except what I just described without further action of the city council. That allows a study of that type of housing and part of our zoning rewrite, zoning ordinance rewrite. So, but once again, if it's something you already own, then it does not affect that.
All right, any questions? I'm sure there will be plenty of discussion in the meeting. All right, ordinances, ordinance 23-4566, approved model airplane club lease at the landfill.
There's no change.
Okay, any questions? All right, we will get started at 10 o'clock. Call the meeting to order. Dane Shaw will lead us in our invocation and pledge.
Father, we are grateful again to come to your presence. We thank you for this time. We ask for your wisdom, your strength as we make decisions that affect the city. And we thank you for all the folks that came for this meeting. We give you all the praise and glory in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks, Dane. Roll call.
Wagner.
Here.
McMasters.
Here.
Jackson.
Here.
Pike.
Here.
Pepper.
Here. All right, we have quite a few signed up for public comment. Most are on a particular agenda item, so we'll wait till that agenda item is before us. But we do have one just for general public comment, and that was Reverend Dorothy Gilchrist. And if you don't mind, come to the podium. And just generally for everybody, we do 3 minutes per person, and addressing the council, not the audience or any city staff, just the council. So go ahead.
Good morning,
Ms. Gilchrist. Yes, ma'am.
I'm coming this morning with probably an unusual request. I have a plot in Decatur City Cemetery, and I buried my brother there in 2008, and a large headstone was bought for his grave in 2009, and it had been there ever since. So I went out back about 3 months ago, and the headstone was gone, missing. But somebody had replaced it with a smaller, I call it a grave marker, and just left it. I'm figuring that probably the one that is sitting next to you, which is a real big one. I know that somebody didn't just walk in there and carry it in there. Somebody had to have had the use of a machine to get it in there, and they may have inadvertently hit my brother's headstone, tore it up, and like I said, sneakily replaced it with one. Probably they didn't think anybody would be, looking, and would come out and watch. So basically what I'm asking the council, if you would consider helping me replace this stone, since it was in the city cemetery.
Did you file a police report by chance?
No, sir, I didn't.
Do you have photos of the headstone?
No, I went to Decatur Marble and Granite, and they said that they didn't go back any further than, I don't look at what it is, but anyway, they didn't go all the way back to 2009, and I have attempted to get them to find something. They said they had some proofs of it, but it's in storage, in a storage building or something, and I can't get it from them. I have approached them several times to get proof. I can show you, what was there. It was a large headstone, had his picture and all in it, and that headstone back in 2009 cost me, I think it was like $885.
I'm kind of getting ahead of the council, and you've come to speak to the council, and I'm just doing this as far as basic operations of the city, but if you have a piece of property that's missing, I would think that it you need to file a report with the police department, let them do their investigation.
Okay.
But Ms. Gilchrist, you did speak with the Parks and Rec Department, correct?
Yes, sir, I did.
And they told you to what?
Well, they told me there was nothing they could do, and then I went over to the granite, company, headstone company. Like I said, they can't find, or rather they won't get up and find the records and a picture of this headstone.
But just going back to our conversation back there, you said that they advised you to come before the council.
They
and
advised
that's
me
why
to
you're
come
here
to
today.
you all. That's correct.
Okay.
Certainly is an operational issue, I would think, but can we investigate this for her, Mayor, and maybe get back in contact?
Absolutely. If you'll just file a report with them so they'll know how to get in touch with you, they'd be glad to help.
Okay. Go to the police department.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen.
Yes,
Thank
ma'am.
you.
Very sorry to hear
Yeah.
that. Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Gilchrist. All right, we'll move into the agenda, approve monthly bills, and we did have a request for, check 9852 to be voted on separately, so we'll take check 9852 first.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Pepper,
Second.
second by Mr. Pike. Any discussion? Roll call.
Ladner.
Aye.
McMasters. Jackson.
No.
Pike.
Aye.
Pepper.
Aye.
Check 9852 is approved 4-1, and then the rest of the July 2023 monthly bills.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Pepper, second by Mr. Pike. Any discussion? Roll call.
Ladner.
Aye.
McMasters. Jackson.
Aye.
Pike.
Aye.
Pepper.
Aye.
Those are approved 5-0. Approval of minutes, we'll take these as one.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Pepper, second by Mr. Pike. Any discussion? Roll call.
Ladner.
Aye.
McMasters. Jackson.
Aye.
Pike.
Aye.
Pepper.
Aye.
Minutes are approved 5-0. Public hearings, resolution 23-217, approved request for special event liquor license for Carnegie Visual Arts Center, doing business as River Clay Fine Arts Festival at 133 Second Avenue Northeast, Decatur, Alabama 35601, on October 20th, 2023, and at 402 Lee Street Northeast, Decatur, Alabama 35601, on October 21st and 22nd, 2023. Lori.
This is their annual River Clay Fine Arts Festival, and they have met all criteria.
All right, this is a public hearing. If there's anyone here to speak on this item, we'll open the public hearing now. All right, seeing no one here to speak, we'll consider the public hearing closed.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Pike, second by Mr. McMasters. Any discussion? Roll call.
Ladner.
Aye.
McMasters.
Aye.
Jackson.
Aye.
Pike.
Aye.
Pepper.
Aye.
That, what's it? Resolution 23-217 is approved 5-0. Resolutions, resolution 23-218, approved request for special use permit for Verizon to modify equipment on an existing tower located at 1406 Chadwell Street Southwest.
Good morning, my name is Jeff Bass. I'm here with CMS. What we have before us is a modification requested by Verizon. They are currently on this tower. This is a 149-foot monopole on 1406 Chadwell Street Southwest. They are offering service right now at 139 feet with 6 antennas. They're requesting to remove those 6 antennas and go back up with 12 antennas, and that should boost the service in that area. We have reviewed this application, and it is our recommendation for approval.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Mr. Pepper, second by Mr. Pike. Any discussion?
Herman, I don't remember when we actually, it's been quite a few years since we did this, and you probably remember that we had great opposition from the people on Chadwell and Cloverdale, that the tower sits directly behind their homes.
I don't remember those, I remember the others.
It's the pine tree that we're talking about.
That's right.
And we were
It was
gonna
down the
camouflage it
street.
with the pine
Yes,
tree,
that-
and the people of that community didn't want it, so I didn't support it at that time. I won't support it today. I guess my concern is very simply that they're going to give us a $10,000 additional rate.
Yeah, that's not part of this, but yes, but further on the agenda, yes, that is
Okay.
correct.
And then, but now we're doing this at the same rate that we were, this tower.
It has an escalation. In other words, you get $500 a month for each additional tenant. In addition to that, there's a percentage that goes up each year. I mean, not the percentage, but it builds on it. In other words, it's 4% each year.
Okay, that was not my understanding of it when I went through that. But did you not say the other day that they're gonna give us 10,000? Is that not this one?
Yeah,
It's
this
further.
it's further on the agenda, but
But
the
it's
answer is
regarding
yes,
this
it's the same tower.
Yes.
If we agree to this by August 31st, they will give us an additional $10,000 in addition to what they're already paying.
Okay, but their profits have gone up literally billions. I mean, each year their profits go up.
That's why we have the 4%
Okay.
part of that.
All right, okay, that answers my question. Thank you.
All right, any other discussion? Roll call.
Ladner.
Aye.
McMasters. Jackson.
No.
Pike.
Aye.
Pepper.
Aye.
Resolution 23-218 is approved 4-1. Thanks, Jeff. Resolution 23-219, approved Wisner proposal for right-of-way acquisitions at Upper River Road at Indian Hills.
Courtney Johnson Engineering. This is to approve the proposal for acquiring right-of-way at Upper River Road and Indian Hills Road.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Pepper, second by Mr. Pike. Any discussion? And this is, we had as part, the overall project is in our ARPA funds, and we think it's about $3 million.
We budgeted $3 million.
Okay. All right, any other discussion? Roll call.
Ladner.
Aye.
McMasters.
Aye.
Jackson.
Aye.
Pike.
Aye.
Pepper.
Aye.
Resolution 23-219 approved 5-0. Resolution 23-220 approved the agreement with Alabama Department of Corrections, North Alabama CBF CWC to provide labor to city departments.
Wanda Tyler Landfill and Recycling. This is a citywide agreement with the Department of Corrections. They provide inmate labor to us at $20 per inmate per day, which includes transportation to and from our facilities.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Pike, second by Mr. McMasters. Any discussion? Roll call.
Ladner.
Aye.
McMasters.
Aye.
Jackson.
Aye.
Pike.
Aye.
Pepper.
No.
Resolution 23-220 is approved 4-1. Resolution 23-221 accept 2023 JAG grant.
Yes, Alan Stover, Community Development Manager. This is a yearly grant that we get from the Department of Justice. It's the one that we share with the county at 60/40. This would just allow us to enter into the agreement with the county on what the amount of funding that they will receive and what they'll purchase with this grant. And it also will allow us to accept the grant once we get all the paperwork submitted to DOJ.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Pepper,
Second.
second by Mr. Pike. Any discussion? Roll call.
Ladner.
Aye.
McMasters.
Aye.
Jackson.
Aye.
Pike.
Aye.
Pepper.
Aye.
Resolution 23-221 is approved 5-0. Resolution 23-222 approved time extension for TTL Incorporated to complete bridge study.
Yeah, TTL has approached the city about a time extension for the bridge study. This is a grant that we're getting from Appalachian Regional Council. We've gotten approval from them to give for this extension, so we're just requesting the council to approve this time extension also.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Pike.
Second.
Second by Mr. Pepper. Any discussion? Roll call.
Ladner.
Aye.
McMasters.
Aye.
Jackson.
No.
Pike.
Aye.
Pepper.
Aye.
Resolution 23-222 is approved 4-1. Resolution 23-223, approve agreement with Urbanist Media to complete a historic context statement for African American and women's history for the city of Decatur.
This contact statement for African American and women's history is a grant that we received from, I believe, the National Parks. And this agreement will just allow Urbanist Media to do that context statement. So we're just allowing, requesting approval for this.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Pike, second by Mr. Pepper. Any discussion? Roll call.
Ladner.
Aye.
McMasters.
Aye.
Jackson.
Aye.
Pike.
Aye.
Pepper.
Aye.
Resolution 23-223 is approved 5-0. Resolution, thanks Alan. Resolution 23-224, accept $5,000 Air Products donation for the fire department.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Pepper.
Second.
Second by Mr. Pike. Any discussion? Roll call.
Ladner.
Aye.
McMasters.
Aye.
Jackson.
Aye.
Pike.
Aye.
Pepper.
Aye.
Good job, Chief.
Resolution 23-224 is approved 5-0. All right, Resolution 23-225, accept $10,000 donation from Alabama Farmers Cooperative to Decatur Fire Rescue toward the purchase of an all-hazards response vessel.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Pike, second by Mr. Pepper. Any discussion? I would just say, and you can build on this, appreciate the work y'all did as we were looking at potentially getting the boat to try to find some community support. I think obviously this will benefit a lot of our industry folks along the river potentially. So anything to add?
This council and the council before, we've worked hard to try to get this boat through a grant, and we finally got the grant. A letter from FEMA saying that we was gonna be awarded this grant for the vessel. Lieutenant Adam Barnett has worked hard, and he's reached out to a lot of the industries out there, and feel like we're getting a good bit of support from them that will be coming in the next month as far as help us, the city, with their portion of what the grant match is.
Yeah, so you think there's other industries that will contribute as they get in budget season?
We've already had, some that has, give us dates of when they could do it, and some said it would have to be in their fiscal '24 budget, and they would get back with us. So, we don't have anything ironclad, but, it seems pretty positive that we'll get some more help with it.
All right.
Be sure to put a reminder on your FY '24 budget somewhere.
That's right, don't forget that.
To go back and ask again,
Yes, sir.
recurring.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
All right, any other discussion? Roll call.
Ladner.
Aye.
McMasters. Jackson.
Aye.
Pike.
Aye.
Pepper.
Aye.
Resolution 23-225 is approved 5-0. Resolution 23-226, authorize mayor to execute an agreement with Dr. Tyler Goldbach to serve as the medical director for Decatur Fire Rescue.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Pepper,
Second.
second by Mr. Pike. Can you talk to us about this?
We have to have a medical director. As like an ambulance service, we have multiple medications that we have to purchase, and we have to do it through our medical director. Dr. Rick Solis had been our medical director, but he has moved off, so we've had to find a new one, and it's Dr. Goldbach, it's who we've worked out a contract with.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call.
Ladner.
Aye.
McMasters.
Aye.
Jackson.
Aye.
Pike.
Aye.
Pepper.
Aye.
Resolution 23-226 approved 5-0. Resolution 23-227, authorize mayor to execute a contract with First Due Company that provides a records management system which includes fire and EMS incident reporting software.
So every year we have a company that does this for us. Right now it's emergency reporting. And we have decided to go to a different company. This is First View. It allows us to report all our NIFRS reports for the fires we have. And it's MSIS compliant with the state for reporting our medical calls that we use. We also use it for inspections, investigations, training, all kinds of stuff like that. So it's already in the budget. We just change it from one company to another one.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Mr. Pepper, second by Mr. Pike. Any discussion? Roll call.
Ladner.
Aye.
McMasters.
Aye.
Jackson.
Aye.
Pike.
Aye.
Pepper.
Aye.
Resolution 23-227 is approved 5-0. Resolution 23-228, approved Princess Theater lease extension.
Yeah, of course, the city of Decatur owns the Princess Theater property. This just extends for 5 more years the agreement we have with the Princess Theater. No changes in the other terms. But they asked for this, and
So moved.
it seems to work well.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Pike. Second by Mr. McMasters. Any discussion? See Mindy here, but I think we're good. Any discussion? Roll call.
Ladner.
Aye.
McMasters. Jackson.
Aye.
Pike.
Aye.
Pepper.
Aye.
Resolution 23-228 is approved 5-0. Resolution 23-229, extend lease period for communications facility with ATC Ponderosa B1 LLC.
Yes, that's the one we previously just discussed, but this is an important location for the carriers. It's important to the tower owner that he's got a particular lease agreement that's waiting on this because they need a longer term. The people that want to sign up need a longer term. The carriers want a guarantee of at least a certain period of time. There's also shared, that's the reason for the $10,000 before August 31st. And it's been in place. It's obvious we just had one. A carrier is making improvements. It is a very important location. And yes, Mr. Jackson is correct. Back when we first did this, there were some concerns. I've not heard any concerns since then. So anyway, that's what we have. And I'm sorry, CMS, our consultant, has reviewed this and recommend that we move forward with it.
So moved.
All right, motion by Mr. Pike.
Second.
Second by Mr. Pepper. Any discussion?
I mean, you're right, we did have lots of concerns from residents who lived on Chadwell, Cloverdale, and I guess after the fact, when the tower's up, there's not a lot of reason for them to complain, but they were opposed to it. We did have an alternate location, just for the record. This was a city location, and that's what the ordinance calls for unless, you know, so we had an opportunity to put it somewhere else, so the residents didn't want it, didn't support it then, so I won't support it now.
All right, any other discussion? Roll call?
Ladner.
Aye.
McMasters. Jackson.
No.
Pike.
Aye.
Pepper.
Aye. Resolution 23-229 is approved 4-1. Resolution 23-230, approved lease agreement for River Clay Fine Arts Festival. Lori?
This is just a lease agreement for the River Clay Fine Arts Festival to use the city property for their arts festival.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Pike.
Second.
Second by Mr. Pepper. Any discussion? Roll call?
Ladner.
Aye.
McMasters. Jackson.
Aye.
Pike.
Aye.
Pepper.
Aye.
Resolution 23-230 is approved 5-0. Resolution 23-231, approve authorization to open an electronic payment receivables account at Renaissance Bank.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Pike, second by Mr. Pepper. Any discussion? Roll call?
Ladner.
Aye.
McMasters. Jackson.
Aye.
Pike.
Aye.
Pepper.
Aye.
Resolution 23-231 is approved 5-0. Resolution 23-232, adopt transportation plan pursuant to Rebuild Alabama Act 2019-2.
Yeah, this resolution just formally approves the projected revenues we think we're gonna receive from the gas taxes and the resurfacing projects tied to the funding.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Mr. McMasters, second by Mr. Pike. Any discussion? Roll call?
Ladner.
Aye.
McMasters.
Aye.
Jackson.
Aye.
Pike.
Aye.
Pepper.
Aye.
Resolution 23-232 is approved 5-0. I'm gonna come back to P and go ahead and do the next ordinance, just in case we have any city staff that need to leave. Ordinance 23-4566, approved model airplane club lease at the landfill.
So moved.
That just extends the lease that we have with them for 3 more years.
Motion by Mr. Pepper,
Second.
second by Mr. Pike. Any discussion? Roll call?
Ladner.
Aye.
McMasters. Jackson.
Aye.
Pike.
Aye.
Pepper.
Aye.
Ordinance 23-4566 is approved 5-0. Resolution 23-233, approved building permit moratorium on certain single-family housing developments.
This basically, what this would do is I shared in the work session, is would have a 6-month time for us to review, bill to rent subdivision, single-family subdivision. And this would be part of the zoning ordinance rewrite review. Our consultant that we have presently in place would do that. This resolution as presently worded would not impact, if you already own lots and have already gotten building permits for any of those lots, then it would not impact your ability to continue on that process. Future review would come as the planning commission and others review this and of course get input from the neighborhoods. But what this does is, the reason we want to go ahead and do it is to get it in place so we don't delay the review of it.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. McMaster, second by Mr. Pepper. And we'll go ahead and start with the public comment. I have about 8 people that have signed in, and I'll just kind of go in order. If you don't want to speak, you can let me know. First on my list is Faye Anderson. And again, we'll do 3 minutes. If you don't mind, just state your name and address and just address the council.
My name is Faye Anderson, and I live at 4411 Kiowa Trail in the Foxwood subdivision. Thank you for this opportunity. Thank you, Carlton, for helping us get information. I speak not just for myself, but for a number of residents in 2 subdivisions, Foxwood and Burning Tree. We're speaking to you today in support of the moratorium. The build to rent concept is very new, and there are many questions about how that will impact current neighborhoods. I want to review just briefly some of the history of how we got to this place. In March of 2021, Pool Properties requested rezoning from R2 to R3. At that meeting, we were assured that moving to R3 would not really impact our current development neighborhoods, because the homes would be built similar to our homes. In fact, the city planner displayed pictures of beautiful homes on small lots and made reference to Crown Point, a very nice area. The next month, after rezoning, the property sold. Over 2 years later, in August of 2023, the covenants and plat were filed and approved for 35 R3 lots with houses a minimum of 1,200 square feet. The next day, August the 3rd, the property in Foxwood was sold to Prominence, a build-to-rent developer. The Phase 4 plat has now been approved for 65 additional lots with this same dimension. So now there's the potential of 100+ rental units in a neighborhood of privately owned homes. On Thursday, the Decatur Daily reported details of an assault in a problematic apartment complex. Mr. Pepper, in that newspaper article, stated that there were problems contacting absentee property owners. Sunday's editorial in the Decatur Daily, some of you may have read it, referred to this incident and encouraged the city leaders to explore appropriate actions. This unfortunate situation just underscores the need for more time to study and develop regulations to address issues. Gentlemen, you have been diligent in trying to improve Decatur and grow the city. And we all want the best for our city. But there's just not enough known about the impact of this build-to-rent project. So we encourage you to approve the moratorium so that all the issues can be addressed. Include a focus on the well-being and of loyal homeowners and residents and the sustainability of their property and their neighborhood, as well as the interest of a developer who will come, build, and leave. Thank you.
That's perfect timing. All right, next I have Chad Bryant.
Good morning, Chad Bryant, 4405 Kiowa Trail. Coming today because, you know, I have lived in the neighborhood for a long time. I have roots in the Burning Tree area. I'm second generation family owner, raiser, and my parents live on Burning Tree Mountain. I live in Foxwood. We're also, I'm second generation NASA aerospace engineer. So we earn our money in Huntsville, but we invest in Decatur. And I'm raising a son that is a senior at Auburn in engineering, and so he's third generation. So what's best for him coming up? So we all are for progress in Decatur, right? But this BTR development model, it introduces some risk of negative impacts into our area. And so some of the things that kind of sends up red flags is the fact that the developers are not from the area, right? So they're not invested like most of us are. And so who is going to help regulate the homeowners association whenever these people are not around, right? So we gotta have concerns of that. The rental agreements, you know, what do those look like? How are those defined? Not sure on that. So we think this has potential to reduce long-term family interest like myself in lieu of more short-term living arrangements, right? So kind of feel like we're not getting, like Faye said, we're not getting what we thought we were going to get into the subdivision of the 1,700 to 2,400 square foot housing, single-family housing. So we have an opportunity to mitigate the risk of the negative impacts to our community. we need the city council's help here. We need you to vote yes for this memorandum moratorium. We need to take time to fully assess and evaluate and regulate this new type of development. I think now is the right time for that to happen because we understand it that you guys are in the middle of reevaluating your zoning regulations. We were asking that you help prioritize and put property rental zone, the rental zone ordinance and regulations up front. So I will say this in closing: if we do nothing, what areas will be targeted next, and would you be comfortable with a BTR development coming to your backyard, right? So help us protect our neighborhoods.
Thank you, Mr. Bryant. All right, next is Jamie Reeves. Saw you somewhere.
Good morning, Jamie Reeves, 113 Second Avenue. I am the owner of Merritt House Realty and Capital Management, and we all know that residential growth and development is top priority for the city of Decatur, and we appreciate all the efforts that you've put forth in doing that. But I do agree with the others that have spoken that it's important that we allow zoning and zoning changes to happen so that we get ahead of anything that could come forward with these build-to-rent type subdivisions. We represent several neighborhoods in the Nashville market, and Nashville has been progressive in making sure that these zonings are allowed only in specific areas similar to our multifamily zoning regulations, so that neighborhoods keep with the integrity of their current neighborhood, and that we can regulate a little bit of how those neighborhoods are built and where they're built. So I ask too that you consider this moratorium this morning as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Jamie. All right, Aaron, you're up next. You weren't sure, so I was just making sure if you wanted to talk.
My name is Erin Cossey. I'm at 4309 Ruby Point Drive in Crown Point, and I just appreciate the time and the attention to this matter. I'm also speaking on behalf of the moratorium. With the council's permission, I would like anyone from Burning Tree or Foxwood or Crown Point just to stand so you can see the presence that these communities have. Thank you so much. I would just like to say, I appreciate the vision that this council has had. I feel like a lot of good things have come to Decatur with your support and your push through, and I just appreciate that. A lot of positive impact has happened with One Decatur, and any part that any of you had in that, I just thank you. And as we continue to push forward and we're progressive in this community, I just ask that you would consider just putting some regulations on BTR. Our neighborhood won't be the only ones that are impacted by BTR. At some point, they will come to other areas, and I just think Decatur has an opportunity to be progressive and to be proactive rather than reactive to these situations and these communities that come up. And I know that you guys have received numerous emails from our subdivisions as well, and I pray and also boldly ask, that you consider passing this moratorium so we have time to put regulations in place.
Thanks, Aaron. Chris, next.
Hey, good morning. My name is Chris Ferris. I live at 2304 Burning Tree Drive. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak before you today regarding the new development within our Burning Tree subdivision. It has come to the attention of the community that this subdivision consists of build-to-rent homes, a concept that seems to be the first of the kind within the city limits of Decatur. As concerned residents, we kindly request the city council thoroughly review the restrictions that have been put in place by other communities with similar subdivisions and long-term rentals. I understand that the city council, along with the planning committee, is currently in the process of rewriting the zoning codes. This presents the perfect opportunity to halt any further developments within the city limits until a comprehensive review has been conducted. It is crucial that we exercise caution and ensure that long-term rental effects of such developments are considered. Firstly, I'd like to highlight that I am personally invested in long-term rentals, as I have one investment property in the city of Decatur. The value of my long-term rental property is important to me, as I am sure that it is also important to the investors who are currently putting their money into this community. It is imperative, however, to remember that the developers come from outside of our state. While we appreciate their contributions to the city, it is equally important that they continue investing in our community by maintaining their properties. It is only fair to require them and other multi-home investors to adhere to the certain standards and regulations, just as local businesses must. Speaking of regulations, it has come to our attention that these outside investors are currently operating without any limitations or regulations in place. Granted, I am always in favor for less regulations, but I truly believe in smart regulations. As responsible citizens, we ask that the City Council and the city itself conduct a thorough review of the impact that these types of developments can have on our community. I've taken liberty to conduct my own research into long-term rental regulations that could be in place as a potential course of action. Here are just a few of those that you could potentially consider. Zoning restrictions. Certain areas may have specific zoning restrictions that limit or prohibit the use of properties for long-term rentals in certain neighborhoods or districts. Licensing and registration. Many cities require landlords to obtain a rental license or register their rental properties with a local government. This helps ensure that landlords are accountable for maintaining safe and habitable living conditions and allows for better oversight. Rental inspection and compliance. Some jurisdictions have implemented routine inspections to ensure that rental properties meet specific health and safety and building code standards. Landlords may be required to pass inspections before obtaining or renewing a rental license. Occupancy limits. In order to prevent overcrowding and maintain the integrity of residential neighborhoods, cities must implement occupancy restrictions based on the number of bedrooms, square footage, or other factors. These limits aim to prevent excessive strain on the local infrastructure and maintain a balanced community. While we encourage growth and development, it is vital that we remember the long-term effects of developments that can have on the overall quality of life. As residents, we want to ensure that we strike the right balance between progress and preserving the unique character of our city. In conclusion, I urge that the city carefully consider these concerns and take appropriate action before granting any further build-to-rent developments. Let us learn from the experience of other communities, both within our state and nationwide, in order to protect the best interests of our Decatur, our home. Together, we can ensure that our city blossoms while safeguarding the values we hold dear. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Mary Ann Scott is next.
Her and Bob are together.
Okay.
They're a team.
All right, good.
They spent a day in Coleman in a car. Sorry, I didn't mean to speak out of turn.
No, I appreciate you letting me know.
I'm Mary Ann Scott. I live at 4402 Kiowa Trail. I'm Remax Platinum broker.
I'm Bob McMillan. I live at 4406 Kiowa Trail, and I'm the broker owner of Coldwell Banker McMillan Associates. I think we're going to echo many of the same things that are said. I'm just going to put some things for you in a statistical sense. We've talked about this being a rapidly moving market, something that's relatively new and probably bears a measured approach to how we want to do this. The whole concept of rent to build is basically been around since 2018. Currently, nationwide, there have been about 45,000 build to rent units since 2018, so in 5 years. But about 14,500 of those units were permitted just last year, which kind of indicates that this is a market that's growing exponentially. And as we're in a rewrite mode on some of our zoning regulations, this might be a good time to take a look at this. I know that North Carolina, Georgia, Utah, and certain parts of California are already doing that. I think Jamie mentioned that Nashville's doing that. So I think this is a nationwide concern, and prudence would dictate that we progress in a fully informed manner.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. All right, that's everyone I had signed in. We do have a motion. I guess. I've seen you in here one other time.
So Andy Villarreal, I'm here really representing Burning Tree Country Club at 2521 Burning Tree Drive. And first I want to say is I think that y'all have done a great job of progressing the city forward. What I'm mad about is y'all made me sign a bunch of stuff before I could do my subdivision. I guess this guy's word was a lot better than mine. I don't know what that says about me, but that's what I didn't understand. I don't live out there, but I own the club. I could say, well, building these 1,400 square foot homes aren't going to be people that are normally going to be a member of our club, but 70% of Burning Tree is not a member of our club, so that has no effect on it. But and I know it, what was brought before y'all to begin with concerning this subdivision was a lot different than all of a sudden what's going to be there. And so when I saw it and talked to Carlton, what upset me was that when this was brought with my property that I was going to do against homes that are worth a lot less money than these homes are, that I had, I signed things that said what I would and wouldn't do, and if I didn't do those, I couldn't build them. And so my concern is why didn't these people have to do the same thing? You could transfer a lot of that responsibility to the Foxwood HOA, let them put those restrictions on those lots, make them become a part of that HOA if they're going to build in that area. Take a lot off yourself, take a lot off the city, let the HOA decide what the restrictions are. And hey, whether that's good or not, I don't know, But all I'm saying is that I know y'all kind of got, it's not something that was out of y'all's control as far as what you were brought forward to and what was shown. But that would have been no different for me to bring something forward and show you something elaborate and then go, well, I'm not really going to build that. I'm going to sell it and let somebody else build something else. But so, I mean, that's all I got to say as far as, what I thought about what happened here was completely different. And so I think either developers need to be treated the same in different circumstances or treated equally. And I feel like in my instance, hey, look, I signed it, I agreed to it, and that's what I'll do. But that's also why I've got that, in that same instance, I got the right to move back outside of the city if it don't work for me, because of those restrictions. So, that's all I ask, is that as developers, because I'm on both sides of it, and as developers and for homeowners, is that, it seems like that everybody is going to get treated equally. And I think, look, y'all are doing a great job in moving the city forward and getting things coming here and built, and I appreciate that. I think we all appreciate that. So, but that's all I got to say. Thank you.
All right, we do have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Sorry, you were signed in, but I missed you. Kent? Yep.
Morning. Kent Lawrence, 2614 Red Bank Road, and as you all know, a member of the Planning Commission. You all know that I'm pro-growth. I believe that Decatur needs all type of residential development, including build-to-rent. But build-to-rent is a new thing to us and something we don't have any experience with. It's not multifamily, but I don't know that it fits in our traditional single-family residential districts either. There are other cities that have already enacted some zoning requirements on build-to-rent, and I think it's something that we should consider. Many times when you allow something new to take place, there are unintended consequences. Take, for instance, short-term rental. It's swept the country with very little to no regulations. And now many cities are going back and enacting regulations or trying to deal with the unintended consequences of it. I have spoken with all but 2 members of the Planning Commission. One of those is out of the country, and the other one's Councilman Pepper. And of course, he'll have the opportunity to speak his opinion today. And all but one of those feel that the council should enact this moratorium to give us time to research this and see what we can and can't do. I've also spoken with many citizens across the city, and they all feel the same way. I believe it would be a wise thing for you to put a hold on build to rent for a short period of time and give us an opportunity to look into it and see what we can and can't do and what we should and shouldn't do. I appreciate everything you do, and I understand it's a very hard job. Thank you.
Try this one more time. We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
Yeah, I first heard the term build to rent probably less than 2 or 3 months ago. And as we've heard from folks who've done their research, it's a relatively new concept. So to say I was absolutely surprised to find out that one of the developments in this city was in fact for build to rent is an understatement. As soon as I found that out, I started looking around to see, you know, what could we do? If you look in, we've already heard about Nashville. Nashville has restrictions. Woodstock, Georgia, any residential community in which 20% or more of the units are rentals is categorized as build to rent and can only be built by way of conditional use permit. So there's a conditional use permit. They also have various regulations as far as design review. Alpharetta, Georgia, build to rents are all zoned multifamily. Holly Springs, Georgia, build to rent have their own zoning. Cherokee County, Georgia, allowed in specific multifamily districts only. It requires the use to be disclosed at a time of zoning. Forsyth, Georgia, a planned residential development where at the time of an application for change in zoning is submitted, it has to be before. So we're seeing a trend that it has to be disclosed and they have to go in their own zoning. I'm not going to touch on design review percentage or anything else, but I think this just speaks to the need other municipalities have found to put some type of regulations in place, and I think that's important here. You know, we've had 2 articles in the last 5 days from the Daily about absentee landlords. What is this going to be? We don't know. You know, this group builds them and sells them, and we don't know who owns them. How are we going to get in contact with them if there's an issue that arises from an enforcement standpoint? And, you know, I think the biggest thing is, one of the things I found that just resonated so much with this kind of coming to a head in the last week or two, and the article Wednesday about Mr. Pepper's situation, and then the editorial Saturday, the apartment has to have, this is quoting the Decatur Daily, the apartment has to have a local rental agent. District 4 Councilman Hunter Pepper, who represents Caredale Street area, and other leaders from the Decatur-Morgan County Chamber of Commerce should ask nicely that the property can be improved. They can offer to contact the owner if that'll help the rental get action. If a polite request doesn't work, don't ignore the problem. Take action and enforce city ordinances. If they lack teeth, start the process of strengthening them. That's where we are today. We're at the process where we have noticed something. It's up to us to take the action and put some teeth in this. And I would ask y'all to support this today.
All right. Any other discussion?
Yeah, I've got a couple of questions. I'll come back to those. But, you know, I'm not going to get into any restrictions on build to rent. My opinion probably differ from a lot of people. That's a conversation that needs to happen at a later date. I think it's critical to remember we're voting on a moratorium right now and what's within that. I've been conflicted. Some of you guys have emailed me, and I've emailed you back, letting you know that, you know, some of it is and it's clear in there. We all know there's one development we're talking about here. They already own the property. They will be able to, just want to make that very clear, they will be able to finish out that phase. Is that correct, Herman?
If they own the
If they own the property.
Whatever lots they presently own, they can develop.
Okay. I struggle a little bit with 6 months. I mean, I think everybody knows the wheels of government move slow. I think 6 months is a long time. I think we're setting the bar a little low for ourselves. We ought to be able to move faster than that. I may be the only one that feels that way about 6 months, and that's certainly fine. Another thing that's in there is there's a 15% rule on any new subdivision. So I guess my concern with the 15% is who is going to enforce that? Who do they report that to? So we have another subdivision. We got other subdivisions right now zoned R3, R4, et cetera, and we're saying this moratorium says they can't build any homes for rent that's above 15% of the homes in there. So how do we police that? How are we gonna know? Can anybody answer that for me?
That's my understanding, in the building department's here, there will be an affidavit that you will
Okay.
sign that indicates that.
So the building department will enforce
Is that
that?
right, Tom?
Yes,
It will
But the
be
aff-
an affidavit we sign with the permit application.
But the moratorium is specifically on build-to-rent subdivisions. So the affidavit is saying, I'm not building a build-to-rent subdivision, right?
See, in one of the paragraph, it says, build to rent, single-family residence or subdivision.
Yeah.
So that should
Okay.
cover it.
So I guess one of my issues is how do you define build-to-rent?
Yes.
I don't think we really know, which is gonna be a real problem trying to enforce a moratorium on it, right? Like, well, no, but and I'm sorry, I'm not gonna respond to comments from the crowd, but I will that, cause I was gonna say it anyway. What you're asking us to do is put a moratorium in place on something we don't really have defined. And yes, it will give us time to look at it going forward, but still, how do you have a moratorium on something that there's no real definition for? Because is it, for example, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Totally
No, you're,
railroaded
no,
you.
no, you're good.
But for example, somebody comes into the building department with these next phases. They go to close on or maybe they buy the property that is being discussed here, the additional properties. And the question is this build to rent? No, I'm gonna sell to investors. Okay, so then those investors, multiple investors maybe get to decide if they're gonna rent them or not. They might sell some of them, they might, so is that build to rent? I don't know. How do you enforce, I mean, I get the concerns and I hear you, but I think there's real problems with the enforcement ability of this because of all those things. If somebody comes in and they're, the stated purpose, I think, was that, but it could be in the affidavit, but we don't really ask, say someone has already purchased property within an R3 or R5 or R1, R2, R6. They already own it. They've owned it for years, say in my district. And they have not stated the purpose to be build to rent, but they've owned this for a long time. They're getting ready to develop it. We don't ask them to state the purpose necessarily. So under the current zoning, they could just go build it.
Yes.
But the moratorium would not, you can't define build to rent. I guess is my real issue. My other issue is in that case where, say there's a property that's under option or contract. All this moratorium talks about is property that is already purchased. If it's under option or contract, and say, for example, there may be non-refundable earnest money. And all this is hypothetical because everything we're talking about is hypothetical. How do we not have liability there by putting, in this case, a 6-month stop on development where they have put down non-refundable earnest money? I would think we have some serious liability.
That was one of my questions, was the
Well,
exposure of this.
In my mind, of course, that's why we're reviewing it. If they've got that situation, they can come to the city and say, here's our situation, and we will review that and see how to address it.
My concern, I sound like I'm arguing with all y'all. I think we do need to take a look. I do agree with Mr. Pike, 6 months seems ridiculously long. And if the goal is to be able to take a look, like everybody has said today, I don't think you should have a problem, really, in my opinion, with making it a shorter time period. And if we don't get there in 90 days or 120 days, we can look at extending that. But I would be very disappointed if we couldn't do that in 3 months. That seems like a appropriate time frame. But my concern is more on the liability side of holding up development where people have real money invested. And I get you do too, but they own this property. I have a real hard time with that, to hold something up for 6 months where people do have money invested. If it's not under option, it's not under contract, that's fine. I get, put a moratorium in, let's figure it out. Because I do agree with a lot of the concerns, but I do have some concerns on how this can even be enforced when they come to you, Tom. That's gonna be a real challenge for your department.
Well, so just to add to that, so the question I'm gonna have right now is how do you plan to enforce it? I mean, I know that that's been a continuous conversation, but how do you plan to enforce it? Like, well, is there any plan in place right now for anything similar to this? Is there an idea? Is there anything that can be brought to the table for enforcement
Come
on
to
this?
the mic, Tom, if you don't mind, please. Tell what you do, Tom.
Good morning, I'm Tom Polk, Development Services Manager, Building Department. The policy, we have something similar in place now. The state of Alabama, through their Home Builders Licensure Board, requires an owner-builder for a single-family dwelling to sign an affidavit saying they will not sell the house within a year. We're going to model something off of that affidavit, and it would be an undefined BTR, just asking them yes or no, and to sign it, date it, and we'll make a determination off of that. That would be included with the permit application.
Yeah, again, though, if I'm that guy and I'm selling to multiple investors.
Well, that's mine, yeah, so.
Well, that's the percentage they'd be looking at in the future of going only 20% of the houses in a neighborhood could be rental. So what's gonna happen if I own one of the other houses and I move out and I wanna rent it? I'm gonna be denied, but the other
That's my,
20%
yeah,
can be.
It's my understanding, though, in the moratorium is on the issuance of building permits for any build-to-rent, single-family residences or subdivisions.
Right,
So-
Tommy, in order for you to start construction on that lot, you've got to get a building permit. Makes no difference whether you were the original owner or, no, that's where it starts.
Yeah.
You can't build a home there till you get a building permit.
Correct.
Well,
Yeah.
that's whoever it may be.
Yes.
So if you,
Yeah, whoever.
If they sell it to somebody else, that somebody else has got to
Submit for permit.
submit.
Yeah,
permit. That's how you
look,
control
I definitely think this is something we need to look at and figure out how to address.
Right.
Again, I still think it's too long, and I'll be honest, just listening to the conversation, this is a very knee-jerk reaction. We got this on Friday afternoon, so I'm real conflicted on how much time and discussion was put into how we're gonna enforce this and how we're gonna control it for us to make a vote. Now, we can vote on it, that's fine, but I'm not sure we're completely prepared at this point.
Can we amend it?
As far as how we're gonna execute.
Can we amend it to say 90 days? Is that
You
possible?
can make a motion to do
Yeah,
that.
the 6 months was just, yeah, we hope it doesn't take 6 months.
And that is, the 6 months, that's simply saying we're gonna coincide that with the zoning
Yeah,
rewrite.
we don't know how long it's gonna take for our consultant.
Do we know when the zoning rewrite is?
Yeah.
Can you speak to when we think we'll see?
Well, it's sent back to the Clarion right now, and we're waiting on it to come back to us. And of course, it'll have to go to a public hearing with the planning commission, and then come to you for 2 hearings as well. I will say, it's a minimum of 3 months to enact an ordinance.
And that's if
So,
we start right
If we
now.
start today, it's a minimum of 3
We
months.
should.
And I agree, 6 months is a long time, and I would, we got a brand new planning manager here today, but I think we'll be starting on, if you vote this in, we'll start on it today. And try to accomplish it as soon as possible.
Do you guys in planning think 3 months is doable? No question. I mean, it's not that we couldn't extend the moratorium. Are y'all comfortable with that?
You are asking a lot of questions. It will be an enormous task to get this done in 3 months. It is doable, but we do have a lot of projects going on.
Tommy, how long do you think?
Tommy, come to the microphone, buddy, please.
And I mean, that was my fear with putting it 90, 120, whatever, knowing everything that's going on. 6 months seemed to be appropriate at the speed that things move.
It did, when you tried to, Councilman Kyle, when you tried to take it down to 3 months, it did worry me, just knowing all the projects that the planning department got going on.
Well, here's what I would say. I don't know that essentially halting a potential development and somebody who is spending money maybe should take precedent over some other things.
That is true, that is true.
So why is the process gonna take, so can you explain that process and why it's gonna take so long?
I can't explain the process at this time, but right now, we do have other things lined up in front of that. But this can be put into the forefront, but, yes, the planning department is down people.
Are
and
we,
got a lot going on.
sorry to interrupt, are we including this in the zoning rewrite, or are we gonna handle this separately like we are a couple other issues from the zoning rewrite? Can anybody answer that?
According to me, this was gonna be handled separately after the zoning rewrite was to be done.
But we're looking at the zoning rewrite in the next month or two, right?
We're trying to get the zoning rewrite done, adopted, and jump on short-term, long-term rentals.
Well,
I mean, if it's gonna be a deal breaker with anybody, the time, I mean, I hate to light a fire under them if they don't think they can make it 3 months, but if the 3 months to 6 months is the difference between a yes and a no.
Lighting a fire is a good thing.
That's,
Well, if it's not completed within the 90 days, we can ask for an extension.
We can extend it.
Very easily.
I mean, I don't want that to be the reason somebody's hung up between a yes and a no.
All right, well, I'd like to make a motion to amend it to 90 days.
All right, we have a motion to change the 6 months to 90 days. Is there a second?
I'll second it so we can vote on it.
All right, I have a second for that amendment. Is there any discussion on the amendment?
I won't fight the 90 days. I understand the risk of being, being sued. I understand that risk. But I do think that we need to give this as much due diligence as we possibly can. Our planning department is already strapped with a lot of different things, and I personally don't have a problem with the 6-month moratorium. That's just me.
Hang on.
I mean, I won't, you're not gonna like this, I won't fight a 90-day one, but I would rather see us do everything that we possibly can to make sure that this thing is done right, appropriately, and so I personally don't have a problem with 6 months.
What I would say.
I fully understand. I'm not trying to contradict you, but go ahead.
Yeah. One good thing about a 90-day is if we give it 6 months, it'll take 6 months, right? If we give it 90 days, maybe it takes 100 days. So
if it does,
let me pause you. I'd like to withdraw my motion for 90 days. Sorry, I'm gonna withdraw that real quick.
Well,
Is there an objection? Well,
The reason it takes a little longer is because you have to advertise before it goes to the planning commission. Then by state law, you have to advertise in Decatur Daily 2 notices. So that's why it takes a little longer.
Well, the whole reason I mentioned it was I wanted some type of explanation as to why we needed 6 months, and I feel like I got that. So I'm okay with that. But simply stated, 6 months seems like a long time. I'm hearing from planning, other people saying that there is a process that's gonna take long, and that's fine. So,
he withdrew his motion on the amendment.
yeah, I mean,
We can withdraw that motion, right?
Right, if he withdraws it, it goes away.
Okay.
So whoever seconded it has to agree.
Yeah,
Okay, he's just agreed.
He did.
So we're back to where we were.
All right, a couple more comments from me. I think through these type of discussions, there becomes this and some people up here may agree with this, like these developers are bad guys. They're following the rules. They've literally followed every rule we had in place. They are abiding within R3 zoning, which is what our control is. We control zoning, okay? And so everything that they've done so far has to meet the requirements for R3 zoning, and they're doing that. When they go to build it, they're gonna have to abide by building codes, okay? So again, I understand your concerns, but they have not tried to go out of the way to do anything and subvert the process or anything like that. You can do what they're trying to do within R3 zoning today, and I get you want us to change that. The other thing, a couple other comments, there are several comments about size of houses, which has nothing to do with build to rent. And I think sometimes, and I've heard it since Friday from a lot of people, I got emails about every house around us needs to be 3,000 square feet. That is never gonna be something that I'm for, is requiring in zoning certain size, and that has nothing to do with build to rent. If the angle is I don't want build to rent, then you really don't need to be bringing up the size of the house or the quality of the house. That's totally separate issues. So just a comment there, because those comments came to us. The other question, I think, came, would you want this, we get this every time we have a rezoning, would you want this near you? And I would say two things, maybe. The other is, does that matter? Like, if there was a subdivision that wanted all white houses or all red brick houses, but I didn't like it, that doesn't really matter. Like, it's not just because I do or don't like something that I should vote a certain way. So I may like it, I don't know. It's just an interesting comment to make. To Andy's point, I would say you make a valid point, and I would say I would have approved your rezoning request without a development agreement. I don't think, the other thing we made a mistake on, and Ms. Fay pointed this out, I think, and this is maybe a planning issue, but when we go to present rezonings, it's very dangerous and misleading, even when we think we have a certain product in place to be built, to show certain types of houses and developments on a screen, because it obviously can change. And I have a little bit of an issue with that. I think that's a lesson learned maybe, so I appreciate you pointing that out, because they absolutely can change. Once it's rezoned, and Mr. Jackson points this out a lot of things can be built that are not necessarily what's shown on a screen. The developer has a lot of leeway there. So I think that's a lesson learned probably for us. We need to be careful about doing that. I really am struggling with this from the liability standpoint. I think it's going to be very difficult for us to manage, and that's kind of why I like the 90-day better, because we can, but if we do 6 months and it's a disaster for us to try to manage, we can probably change the 6 month the other direction if we had to. But I do think it's going to be a real challenge for the building department to manage this. All right, any other discussion?
Just a question from Mr. Harris. I want to make sure I heard you right. Did you say you were for inspections? Harris does.
Ferris.
Ferris, excuse me. Excuse me. And I have it written down, Ferris. Yet to be determined period.
Sorry, say it again?
Inspections
Right.
for build to rent.
So I'm in favor of any long-term rental that's going to require, so it doesn't matter who you are. If you own multi-home investments within a community, regardless if it's a build to rent or if it's a long-term rental within our community, there should be some requirement in there, and I don't mind, I have a long-term rental, that should have some sort of explanation that, hey, look, this could be inspected at some point when you're trying to apply for a rental permit.
Thank you very much.
So,
yeah.
So I have a slight question here, and I'm just a tad bit. So if an individual buys a home and they decide they want to move from that residence and they decide to rent that home to a regular family, they have to apply for a rental permit. Is that what I understand? Because that's okay. But I don't think I'm understanding this correctly.
It's really important we stay focused on the moratorium.
Well, no, I know that, but we're talking about build to rent homes here. So these build to rent homes, I personally.
We wouldn't have any built after this, but.
The answer to your question is no, okay?
Okay, there we go. Okay, so I'm gonna hold my comments now.
That would not apply.
Okay, good.
Because the property is already owned.
Yeah, okay, there we go, okay.
And they definitely wouldn't sign an affidavit saying they were starting a build-to-rent subdivision. All right, any other discussion? I'm struggling with this one, but I think I'm gonna vote with y'all. All right, roll call.
Ladner.
Aye.
McMasters.
Aye.
Jackson.
Aye.
Pike.
Aye.
Pepper.
Aye.
All right. All right, yeah, thank you.
Not often we get a round of applause.
All right, resolution 23-233 is approved 5-0. That concludes the meeting. Anything else from any directors? Now y'all are ready to go. Mayor, I think you had one thing.
Yes, sir. Chris Stone, if you will, please stand. You can just stand right there. I'd like to introduce Chris Stone, our new Planning Department Manager. Chris, it's great to have you with us. Of all things, Chris is undergoing new hire orientation today. And we felt that this was no better place for him to be than right here. So, Chris, thank you for taking time. You're dismissed.
He just said to me what a great day to start.
All right, anything else from council?
I got just one, I'll be really brief though. We've had a lot of power outages lately, a lot of storms come through. We've thanked our Parks and Rec tree crews, but I'd really like to thank Decatur Utilities, especially the linemen that are going out there in the conditions. And lately, it's been a lot of hours, it sounds like, hearing from DU. So just appreciate all those guys, the crews that go out in the middle of the night in the storm to get the power back on. I know nobody wants to be without power, but you sure are glad when those guys show up. So I'd like to thank them too.
All right, anything else?
Thank you, guys.
All right, we're standing adjourned. Thanks.